Hi everybody, welcome to Sprague Woodturning. My name's Jim. If you haven't been here before, this is predominantly a turning channel where each and every week I show people how to make things on the lathe. If it don't go round, I typically don't like to do it. This week we're going to be working with some more black walnut and something new. This is branches from a snowball bush. That's what these are. So we're going to combine these with some epoxy, and hopefully whatever we make with this is going to be cool. So please stick around and see how it turns out. All right, first things first, I've got these cut to the right length. We need to cut these to the right length and then of course strip the bark off and get some epoxy mixed up, and we'll go from there. So yes, welcome to the video. Snowball bush. Yeah, I've never I've never worked with any snowball bush wood, so that's what this is, and it is ironically very white, like a snowball. But anyway, if you haven't seen these bushes, they're really quite impressive when they flower. Just a huge snowball looking flower. Very cool looking. So anyway, I'm going to try and strip the majority of the bark off these pieces before I go to the lathe, but I'm going to try a different technique that I haven't done before. I'm still collecting bark for my bark and epoxy casting, whenever that's going to be. I guess as soon as I get enough bark. You can see how the bark is delaminated from the from a lot of it, so we'll see how this comes off. Could be a real pain actually. Maybe I'll pinch it between centers and try and get it off that way. Grind it off. Some of it's stuck on there really good, and then some of it is not. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way. I'm going to melt that between centers, and I'll probably melt these between centers and grind it off. If you're new to my channel or new to casting epoxy period, it is important to remove the bark, as much of it as you can. And the reason for that is, of course, you want the epoxy to bond to the wood and not to the bark, because of course the bark can delaminate from the wood. Now there are exceptions to that. If you're working with pieces that the bark is really on there good, and actually you'll see one here next week, then I'm going to leave it. And this is the first time I've ever done this where I turned the lathe on, and it actually worked really good. So I'll definitely be doing that a lot more in the future. I will eventually throw the walnut ones back on here just to try them out. But I initially cut 3 of these, and that wasn't enough, but I needed 4. But this one wouldn't fit in the bucket, so I had to grind it down. So I initially turned it on, but of course this walnut bark is a lot thicker than the snowball bush bark. So the key, I think, is to just kind of grind off the majority of the bark. And then because my lathe is variable speed and I can dial it down, I get it run at a very low speed. And the Kutzall sander here with that grinding disc does an absolutely fantastic job. So if it works great if you've got to remove a lot of bark from a lot of pieces, and there you go. Awesome. I originally would have stuck with just the 3 walnut pieces, but I didn't have enough snowball bush to fill in the rest, so that's why I had to put in a 4th. And I forgot to do one when I was at the lathe, so that's what I was looking at, if you're wondering. All right. Yeah. That should give us a really cool pattern. All right, let's mix up some epoxy. Finally. That, believe it or not, has taken a good solid 2 hours to cut to length and to strip the bark off. It's a good idea to always mark your buckets. That way, you don't make as many mistakes. Don't ask me how I know that. This week we're going to be using deep casting epoxy from Designer Epoxy. Surprisingly enough, usually when I do these stick and branch castings, they seem to really eat up a lot of epoxy. But in this case, it actually wasn't too bad. I don't think that we've ever done pure gold or a gold only casting that I can recall. So that's what we're going to do this week. Start with 2 and see what that looks like. Now I like contrasting colors. This isn't so much a contrasting color. Some people have been asking me to do a color like this, so that's why we're doing it this week. Now I don't know how many of these it's going to take, but it's going to take a lot. I would say, guessing right now with a reservoir sitting on the top, I'm going to say it's going to take at least 3 liters. But we'll see. This will float, so I'll probably put 1 in. That'll probably be fine. Then I'll have to throw a weight on top of it so it'll stay put. Yeah, they're already starting. Well, I think I'm going to be pleasantly surprised that I was wrong. Yeah, I mean, it's up almost 2/3 of the way. Quite surprised by that. All right, I'll mix up another one, but I've got to throw this on here or else we're going to have all kinds of problems. And we'll get Dwayne, wherever Dwayne went to. Where's Dwayne? Oh, Dwayne's down there. There's Dwayne. Mix up another one, I'll be right back. All right, this will bring it to 3 liters. Vacuum chamber is coming up next. All right, I got the lights off so that you can see what's going on in here. I don't know, I've got about a 1/2 inch of room before that hits the glass here, so I think we're okay, but I guess we'll find out here. So you may have noticed all the wormholes, bug holes that were in that walnut, so that's one of the main reasons to do this. You know, and it will also fill in any cracks that there may be as well. So, you know, it is important to use a vacuum chamber, and, you know, if you're on a budget and you're looking to buy either a vacuum chamber or a pressure pot, probably your best investment is a vacuum chamber, because you can place things under vacuum and then leave them on the bench to cure. You do not need a pressure pot, and you do not need a vacuum chamber to do resin casting, but it will give you a better casting in the end. So that's why I recommend having at least the vacuum chamber when you're doing this. That is about 18 inches of vacuum. There's not a lot of space at the top of this bucket. So anyway, I'm going to keep doing this for about a 1/2 hour, and then I will bring you back when we're ready to go into the pressure pot. So that's been a 1/2 hour. I'm just going to release the vacuum here. Yeah. I was not able to get above 20, and just I don't think there's just not enough room to do this properly. This was another couple inches taller, probably be able to get full vacuum for sure. Anyway, I'm going to burn these bubbles off, throw this in the pressure pot. See you guys in there in 3 days. Well, good day. Dwayne says hello. We are 3 days after the pour. Looks like the epoxy has dropped off at least 1 inch, I would say. I don't know if I'm going to do another pour or not. Anyway, let's get Dwayne off, get this off here, and then we can make a call as to what we want to do here. Yeah, looking at 1.5 inches that it's dropped off. Now, of course, some of these are lower, so really you need to measure it from the lowest one. So yeah, you're looking at 1 inch. But the way it sits right now, you're looking at probably a 5-inch deep bowl. So, you know, that's not bad. I don't think that's bad at all, actually. But I know there's some of you in there going, oh yeah, he needs to do another pour. I hear you. Yeah. Just give me a second. Let me think about this and decide if I'm going to do another pour or not. I really would like to get this on the lathe today just because of time constraints. But I don't want to waste this either. Alright, you talked me into it. Let's put some sapphire blue in there. And we'll use ArtCast to do that. And then that way we'll be able to do this tomorrow. So ArtCast to the rescue. Really like using ArtCast for projects like this. Because of course after 24 hours you're able to get back to work and back on the lathe. You can see that part A is pretty thick. It's a lot colder in the workshop than I would like it to be, but hopefully we'll be solving that soon when I get to the workshop. Kind of cool out here, so I'm just going to wrap this in the battery blanket. I'll tighten it up and we'll leave it for about 10 minutes, and then after that it should be good to mix, but it's just a little bit too thick right now. Alright, we're going to continue mixing this because 97 degrees Fahrenheit, 36 degrees Celsius. So all I did was just kind of wrap this around. Didn't have to tape it. That really helps warm up your epoxy. There's others mentioned that you can get heating pads for growing seeds on. That's another option. Yeah, it flows so much better now. So yeah, in the future when I move over to the new workshop, the room where I'll be doing my casting, I'm going to try and keep the temperature maybe a little hotter in there than the rest of the workshop, because I don't like it real hot in the workshop anyway. Anyway, we'll throw a spoonful of this in. And I don't know if this is going to be enough. If it isn't, I don't know. I might just leave it as it is. So in a perfect world, we would be able to get down in here and sand these little areas so that, you know, to make sure there's a good bond between the new epoxy and the old epoxy, but, you know, good luck doing that. So anyway, we'll just pour this. I'm sure it will be fine. I've done this a number of times, but the fact that we're doing this now, I think for sure this is going to be a fairly large enclosed bowl. And of course we'll have all this gold on the bottom and then kind of a blue-ish top. Should look really nice. Right, so this is 24 ounces and that's close to 3/4 of a liter. Yeah, it looks like we're gonna have pretty much the perfect amount. Looky there, never even measured either. Right, so unfortunately that's going to be it for today. I am going to throw this in the pressure pot and we'll see you guys and girls tomorrow. Oh, this is pretty heavy. Well, good morning. We're looking at 19 hours after the pour. This in theory should set for 24 hours before using it, but I think that it's good enough, so I'm not really too concerned about it. It'll cure when it's on the lathe. Okay, let's get this out of here. I'm not expecting any thermal cracking, but well, I guess you never know. Alright, I'll try drilling a hole in the bottom. I've done this before, that's why that tape is there. I think it may have worked. Heard something release anyway. There you have it. Anyway, I'll throw some more tape in there and then this will be ready to go again next time. But seriously, when it comes to the using the air pressure to get these out, you have to be really careful. Because when you're filling that up, I've had buckets where it's all plastic on the bottom. That one's wood, but literally the bottom blew out. So, you know, if you're not wearing safety glasses, you can certainly, you know, have some issues there. But anyway, it worked this time. But I'm telling you, it's not a thing that, for me anyway, works all that often. I should show you the side profile here. Yeah. Should be pretty cool actually with this. It is a little lower in some areas, so that turns it into not so much of a hard line. For those that have been around for a while, they know that I don't care for witness lines, and that, you know, usually comes from doing multiple pours like this is. But in this case, it actually kind of adds to it. So I guess I need to rethink that. I'd say that's pretty good. That is the number 3 Hercules from Hunter Tool Systems. Link in the description to get 10% off your order. And we're going to start off here with 750. This was relatively balanced. I tried to go up a little higher than that, but I was getting too much vibration. If my lathe was bolted to the floor, which it will be at the new workshop, then you can typically go higher on your speeds. But it's just sitting here in the workshop, so I got to be careful how high I go with speeds. So like it always is, the goal here is just to strip off any excess epoxy and get a look at things and see if any repairs need to be done. That's probably one of the biggest ones. But you know, of course you want to kind of expose the wood so that you don't have the ghosting effect, which I don't care for. And if you're not familiar with what I mean by that, that's essentially when you can see the wood below the epoxy sitting on top of it. That's what I refer to as the ghosting effect. Not a super huge fan of that. Sometimes, you know, it's something that you have to live with. But of course, in this casting, I think I've got the right wood to epoxy ratio, which I know a lot of people really look for. But this is a really cool looking piece, and I hope you guys really enjoy it. It took a lot longer than I expected to be quite honest with you. You're dealing with nothing but end grain, and of course when you're cutting into end grain from the top side, it's not an easy thing to cut into. Side grain bowls typically cut a lot easier than end grain bowls. But regardless, I really like the look of the large epoxy, or the large branches and the small branches combined together. And the epoxy is pretty darn nice too, I must say. So I'm going to be cutting a tenon here so that we can hold this and get a glue block on the bottom like I usually do. And, you know, there's still people asking me why I do this. Why don't I just incorporate a tenon from the piece? And my response to that is, if I did do that, then I'm robbing a half inch of height from the bowl. So that's why I like to glue on these tenons. You don't actually steal any height from the bowl to make your tenons. And that's the main purpose for me to do it. And it also aids if you're doing multiple coats of finish like I do, where you can handle the piece and not put your hands on it. So that's the two main reasons why I put glued on tenons. And I just use hot melt glue. It's high temperature hot melt glue. If you're in Canada, you can get it at Canadian Tire. If you're not, I don't know where you can get it. Amazon probably, I'm assuming. But just try and make sure that it's a high temperature hot melt glue, and it should work just fine. Just using the parting tool from Crown to try and crispen up that tenon a bit. To be perfectly honest with you, it's not a huge deal. We're just holding this so that we can get the glue block on the bottom. Yeah, it's got to be held securely. I am using dovetail jaws, but it's very hard to cut a dovetail when you've got, you know, the top like this. So anyway, I know that there are dovetail scrapers, and I might invest in one. And if you've got one, let me know what you prefer, just to help me cut these tenons so they're cut properly. But regardless, it held perfectly fine, and since the epoxy wasn't totally set, it actually gripped into the epoxy very well. So there is our white birch waste block, and when that was finally, when the glue was finally solidified, I'm just going to use the Ellsworth gouge here to cut this tenon rather aggressively. By the way, the filmed footage on this was 7 hours that I had to edit. So that gives you an idea of how long that this took. So in total, I would say that there's probably 8 hours of footage, somewhere around there. 8 hours to make this piece, I should say. And I'm still not done the foot. So while you watch me reverse this, I'll just briefly talk about last week's video. And you know, I did an Easter egg nightlight. Kind of mixed reviews. I think that a lot of people really liked it. It is in our personal collection. I am going to keep it. But I used what's called Easter grass in there. And I mean, it's got Easter in the name, so I thought that I'd be safe to use it. But a lot of people didn't like it. Personally, I think that I do. If it wasn't in there, it would be kind of just a cloudy egg. So it does add a pop color. But anyway, I will leave that. I will link that at the end of this video in case you missed it. Anyway, it was a fun project to do, and I really liked it. Hopefully you guys did as well. So this is what we got so far. I must say, looking down on the face of this, I really like the look of it. This, believe it or not, would be too large to make a hollow form with, unless we shrink it down in diameter, because I can't reach the outer end of this. But I think what this will really look nice as is an enclosed bowl. So, depending on how big of an opening I've got here, I might be able to get a small core out of the center of this. But you know, I'm just going to round this over. I might dish this up slightly where so that we get this blue in here. I think that that's actually going to look quite nice if we do it that way. But yeah, round this over and swoop it up just slightly. And then if there's enough room there to take a core out, we will. If not, oh well, so be it. But let me get some, I mean, we can see how nice this epoxy is, but let me get some denatured alcohol. Oh yeah. Pretty stuff. Yes, sir. Can't complain about that. Anyway, let's get to it. Got a few focusing issues here. I think that light that's in the bottom left corner is throwing the focus off on the camera. But anyway, it won't be too much longer here. So yeah, I mean, a larger hollowing rig, and I could have hollowed something like this. Again, by the time I had got done shaping it, maybe it would have been small enough in diameter for it not to be a factor. But anyway, I think that it's really, really nice as a bowl, and I'm happy with that decision. I did have to change the cutter throughout this. I don't know how many projects I've got on the previous cutter, but I I will probably change cutters quicker than most people because I really hate dull tools. And the other thing too is when the cutter is starting to get dull, the heat will transfer from the cutter up the shaft of the tool and it will get really hot. So this is one of the reasons why I like to swap out the cutters, probably more than most people would. You might see the big ring light behind me just to help illuminate the space. In this temporary workshop of my brother-in-law and sister-in-law's, it's I think he's got 6 4-foot fluorescent light fixtures in there, and maybe they're LEDs. So, you know, the lighting is good for a normal workshop, but of course when you're trying to film, it certainly isn't. That's why, you know, I've always got tons of lighting sitting around my lathe. It's always an issue, and it always has been ever since I started filming, even when I was just working as a production turner. You know, I like to have lots of good light to see what I'm doing. You tend to make less mistakes and miss stuff, so that's probably the main reason for it. There, we got a few more little cuts to do here, and then we'll be able to set up the steady rest and get a small little core out of this. Definitely something that I want to do whenever I can. When you look at the cost of epoxy and the time that it takes to make this kind of stuff, it's definitely your best interest to try and get as many cores out of pieces that you can. It will put a lot of money back in your pocket. So we're all set up here and ready for coring. This is the Core Pro cutter from Hunter Tool Systems. And of course, this is the one-way coring rig. You can get it at oneway.ca. We'll get probably a 6-inch core out of here. I'd sooner get something out of this than, you know, see it all go to shavings. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to use tailstock support until we're almost, I would say, we're almost all the way in there. So got the steady rest in place, so hopefully nothing bad happens. All right, let's find out. So this Core Pro cutter does have some sticker shock, I'm not going to lie. But, you know, I've done a lot of coring in my days, and the Core Pro cutter, hands down, is the best cutter for the system, and it stays sharp. It seems like forever. I've never actually even changed one of these cutters. That's how good they are. And they do use a carbide cutter. The only knock that I see on them is they're a little wider than traditional cutters that come with this system. But, you know, you would be hard pressed to cut pieces like this with the original cutters that do come from One Way. So the Core Pro cutter is definitely an upgrade, and it's sometimes this can be a frustrating experience. But, you know, since getting the Core Pro cutter, that has definitely changed considerably. So in a nutshell, you know, this has been a really great addition to my coring rig, and I'm really glad that it was suggested to me, probably 2 or 3 years ago now. And it's just absolutely awesome. So yeah, it's nothing huge, but that's a cool little something. Small little bowl. Could make a nice little box out of it. You name it. I couldn't reach all the way into the base of this piece because it was too tall. The knife set just wouldn't allow it. So of course we got to drill this out so that we can use the Hercules to take out the bulk of the weight of this, especially at the upper end of it. And you're going to see here in a second that this is my solution to having my left-handedness. So I'm standing on the back side of the lathe, so that way that my left hand, which of course is your dominant hand if you're left-handed, will be on the back side of the tool. And the goal here, I do plan on moving this outboard, but I want to get rid of as much mass as I can because, you know, that glue block isn't exactly the largest. I probably should have swapped out the chuck for my larger jaw set and put a larger tenon on it. But at the time, I don't know, it just never came to mind. I didn't think that this was going to be that big of a deal, and it isn't, to be quite honest with you. But it's always a good idea to get rid of as much mass as you can before moving it outboard if you're in my situation. But you know, the vast majority of this casting is wood, so I decided to switch back to the Ellsworth gouge just to try and move things along here, because it was cutting this end grain is just, it's not fun. It really isn't. So I'm just kind of in get her done mode, just trying to get rid of as much mass as I can, and then that way hopefully the waste block won't break free from the base when we move it outboard. And speaking of outboard, that's what I've done here now. You can see that, you know, the foot profile is fairly large, and I definitely could have used the larger jaw set. So, you know, please keep that in the back of your mind if you're going to take something on like this. But before I moved it out, I think the vast majority of the weight was out of the bowl. And when you're working down near the base, if you get a catch down near the base, it's not really that big of a deal. But if you do get a catch out near the rim, then of course you've got more mechanical advantage to rip that free from the chuck or to rip the waste block off the bottom of the bowl. But overall, I'm really happy with the way that looks. Those white pith areas, the hearts of these branches, it's actually about as soft as sumac is. I didn't think that it was really that big of a deal. We will have to do some fixing of those, but overall I do like the look of them, and it's probably another branch that could easily be drilled. The centers could be drilled out of them, and then of course another epoxy cast in it, and then of course put into a casting as well. Pretty much the bulk of the removal on the outside here was done with the Hercules. I used the gouge on the inside for probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 passes, and then the edge was gone off of it. So I was like, okay, we'll just stick with the Hercules when we move it outboard. That's all there is to it. I'd sooner be turning than sharpening all the time, and that's why carbide tools are a really good choice for these hybrid epoxy wood projects. So as you watch this zoomed out view, you'll get a sense of body position and how I'm holding the tool. And I'll also talk about, I did another workshop video. If you've missed that, you'll have to find that on my account here. But it was the 7th video in the series. And all the painting, if you did miss it, all the painting is done, all the trim work is done. And now we're even up to the point where the sink in the bathroom was installed, toilets installed, and we're getting real close. The only thing that's really holding things up right now is the HVAC, and that is taking place next week. So, you know, hopefully no more than 2 weeks' time, I'll be able to move over there. I'm not exactly sure when I'll be able to get my first project out of there, but the move should happen here in 2 weeks or so. So what do you think so far? I know on the lathe there it's a little hard to show this, but I think it's an awesome design, to be honest with you. But we have some issues with these hearts. They're really, or pith, if you will. They're really soft, some of them. And I think that it's best that we try and harden these up and then do a final trimming before we do any sanding here. So to do that, I'm going to be using the Flashbond CA from Designer Epoxy. Again, there is a link in the description to get 10% off your next order. And we will set it with the accelerator. I'll just work my way around the piece here. Some of these, the pith is completely missing. So on that one walnut piece that I'm filling there, a solution to that is to just take a bunch of shavings and poke them down inside of the pith and build it out to the surface and then hit it with CA glue. I end up cutting that away when we go back to the lathe, and I kind of fix it off of camera, but that's probably the easiest way to deal with these deep pith areas. We'll say that the bugs have left a pretty cool pattern behind there, but there's also some parts where the epoxy didn't get to it, so I'm going to fill those with the CA as well. So this is, I think, the third time that I've used the CA glue, and so far I'm loving it. It performs as good as any other CA glue that I've ever used, and of course it's a fantastic price. And if you're interested in getting some, please use code InlayJimCA, and that will help with the channel. Thanks. There. Lots of CA glue, but I think that it's really important to do that before we do an epoxy coat, which I think we're going to do. We'll see what it looks like after sanding. I might just go with the sealer from Waterlux too, though. But anyway, I'll leave that for 10 minutes, and then we'll see you back on the lathe. So for the outside here, I'm just going to be doing some shear scraping with a freshly sharpened gouge. And down near the bottom, you'll see that there's some tear that I'm dealing with. So that's why I keep shutting off the lathe and checking on it. It's still there a little bit. You know, just try your gouge in different positions and see what's cutting well and what isn't. Sometimes the shear scraping, and yeah, there, it's all gone now. Sometimes shear scraping is the answer, but sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's just the way the tool, and it's a little bit there still. It's just the way the tool is presented to the wood. But usually when the flutes are up and straight up and down, like they are out near the rim here, that will usually give you a really good cut on the outside. And for those non-turners that are watching, working on the outside of these pieces is far easier than working on the inside. So that pith area that I was showing to you, you'll see me turn off the lathe and look and see where it's at. I just don't like the location of it. So I'm going to cut into this so that it's not out at the rim. And then, because I think that was really distracting and it would take away from the look of it. So that's why I cut it back. Well, you'll see it here in a little bit. I cut it back so that it really becomes a non-issue. Some dry glue, pull that out of there. Cut in a little further, and then that way the pith isn't really at the rim. But what I should have done there was filled that, and that would have been a non-issue. You wouldn't even have really noticed it. And there you go. No more problems. But you can see how deep that goes in there. So we did another filling off camera, as you can see, by the amount of CA glue on the inside. And I also took care of that pith in that piece of walnut on the outside as well. Again, you know, I can't film all this. This video is probably going to be 55 minutes or longer. So I know that some people are having some issues with the length of my videos, but you know, I call this channel an instructional channel, and if you cut the majority of the footage out, then there's not a lot of instruction. that's just the way I see it. So, you know, I know that some people love having longer videos. I prefer to watch longer videos myself. I get a little disappointed when somebody puts up a video and it's only 15 minutes long. Like, man, what else am I going to do with my time? As you can see, I'm using the Ellsworth gouge way above center. And that will give you more of a shear cut by using it like that. So that's why I'm using it in that orientation. Again, with all that end grain, it's a good way to tackle that. These are the 3.5-inch dipple discs from sandpaper.ca. And again, another fantastic company. Been using sandpaper.ca for over 20 years. And they sell more than just these discs. They have a complete line of sandpaper products. So check them out. There is a link in the description to get 10% off your next order. Love these discs. And the big thing that I really like about them is how they wrap around the pad, and you can sand those upper areas right where it was just there near the top. They work fantastic. And great price too. All right, here's your epoxy coat. This is 3 ounces of the Pro Series from Designer Epoxy. So even after 2 applications of the glue, there are still some areas in those pith areas predominantly that are an issue. And of course, every time you cut something back, then you're going to probably expose something else. So that's why this epoxy coat really does help with these hybrid epoxy wood pieces. And yeah, I've really, since switching to this method, it has really helped me as far as finishing. You rarely see me have to fix any large voids, and one of the reasons for that is because of the pressure pot and the vacuum chamber, but doing these epoxy coats really help as well. So what do you think of that? That one there with all the worm passages in it. Very cool. I really like the form. Yeah, there they are on the outside. I like it. That one's got some blue staining in it. Didn't really know Walnut could get that. More bug holes. Very cool. I'm going to throw this back on here, and I'll keep kind of rubbing this in until I decide to put it in the enclosure, just to make sure that we've got as much epoxy going into these little heart areas or pith areas that I can. Anyway, let me know what you think. Love the blue, love the gold. All right, well, good morning. This is what we're looking at the next day. Yeah, lots of bubbles, dry spots for sure, this area. But yeah, there's the odd bubble here and there. But overall, especially on the inside, looks like things got sealed up quite nicely. Anyway, I'm going to start sanding at, well, I'll probably start at 120, work my way to 800. We'll buff this, clean it, and get our first coat of Waterlux on. So one of the important things to keep in mind here, so you've just used the epoxy to seal up these areas. So if the epoxy is really heavy in spots, then you may have to tool it. But if you tool it, in a way, you kind of reset everything too. So it's best to try and grind this off instead of tooling it, and then that way the majority of that will stay behind in those pith areas and other areas that may need the epoxy. So we're going to do something a little different this week. Now this is predominantly Walnut, and I've been having issues with Walnut and Waterlux. So I'm not going to buff this, and I'm not going to clean it with the denatured alcohol, and I'm going to apply one coat of this universal tung oil sealer from Waterlux. And the last time that we used this with the Walnut, it really improved. So I'm really curious to see what this looks like without any buffing and without any denatured alcohol on this. So anyway, let's have a look, and we'll really know better tomorrow when we look at the condition of the bowl. So just like any project, you know, putting that first coat of finish on and bringing that wood alive is one of the best. I think it is the best part of it. We already got a glimpse of it with the epoxy, but man, I love this part. Nice and shiny. That's a positive thing. Tilt this up a bit. Yeah, I really like this shape. Big bowl too. Don't see a lot of epoxy bowls this size. Blue staining, white pith areas, walnut, a little bit of blue at the top, which you would never know why that's there. Just saying. That's a cool area too. So they say to wipe off any excess. So I'm going to let this sit for about 10 minutes. Might even put a little bit more on it. And then I'll wipe it off and put it in the enclosure. One thing about this sealer, it is very, very tough, very hard. And if you have any of it standing on the surface, it is very hard to buff. But anyway, let me know what you think. Yeah, that's a really cool pattern down in there too. And we'll see you tomorrow for the first coat of Waterlux Original Gloss. So here we are the next day. As you can see, it looks very matte. A lot of people might be happy with this finish. But, you know, as I like to say, shiny sells. Anyway, there's no bleed through. That there's a little bit there. Wouldn't even be able to see that on camera. Now, there's a little bit here. I'll try and show it to you right here. Yeah, see it there? Anyway, that stuff is really hard to buff off, but I think that it'll be okay. A little bit on the inside too, but not bad at all. So anyway, we're gonna buff this, clean it with the denatured alcohol, and get our first coat of Waterlux Original on. So this is the Triple E buffing compound, as in the city of Triple E, from the Beal buffing system. Now you're going to see I do a fair bit of aggressive buffing here. Those few spots that remained were very, very tough to cut back. That's why it's very important to wipe out the rest of the finish that doesn't get absorbed by the bowl. Because if you don't do that, I'm telling you, it's a very, very tough, that sealer is really tough, and it's really hard to cut back. So I had to put on the spindle lock and, you know, buff certain areas, and kept loading the pad in order to achieve that. She's tough stuff, let me tell you. And you don't want to leave a bunch of it sitting on the surface, because in all likelihood, you're probably going to have to sand. Once that's done, we clean it with the denatured alcohol. That way we don't have any adhesion issues. There's what the can looks like. I do find buffing the original gloss a lot easier than the sealer coat does. The other thing too is only pour out as much as you need, especially the sealer, because when it's poured into that Dixie cup, it doesn't matter if you place something on the top of the cup to seal it, it's going to cure. It's going to cure overnight. I can do this with the original for about 1 day, and that way I don't have to return it to the stop-loss bags. There it is in its first coat of Waterlux. Yep, I like it. Very busy, lots going on. The gold, of course, is more a wood tone than, say, the blue is, that's for sure. Anyway, hopefully this does it, because it's Wednesday, and well, hopefully we'll be doing the foot tomorrow. It looks pretty good. Anyway, we'll see you then. Let me know what you think. I think the inside is really, really cool. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow. So after 1 coat of the sealer and 1 coat of the original, it's ready to have the waste block removed. I think it only took me 3 attempts to get this on here, so it was running true. And we're just going to use the Ellsworth gouge to clean off the bottom of this, and then of course I'm going to sand it from 120 to 320. I don't think there's any need to go any higher than that. Alright, well, I'd like to thank you all for watching the video, especially the ones that have watched it all the way through. I really do appreciate it. And special shout out to the members. Thank you so much for your support. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to be a member of my channel, it is $2.99 a month to do so. Alright, let's have a last little chat about this little beautiful bowl. And I hope you guys like it as much as I do. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what you think about this. Certainly of all the branch themed projects that I've done, this is, I think, maybe one of the best. Bowl wise, I think for sure. I really, really like that profile. Let me know what you think about that profile. Really like it. I did engrave the bottom. I didn't show it because we're out of time. Way too long So I had to put it in 2 locations, there and there. And of course there's no finish, as per normal. So the size on this, it appears really large on camera, but after measuring it, it's 9 3/4 at its widest dimension, 5.5 inches tall, and the opening here is 6 7/8 of an inch. And I really like this piece, and I hope you guys do. Anyway, let me know in the comments. But I think it's a really cool project, and mixing the larger branches with the smaller branches, I think gives you a really unique look that you don't get with branches that are all kind of similar in size. But anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. And this piece is for sale. If you're interested, send me an email to spraguewoodturning@gmail.com, and I will disclose the price then in case this is a gift. I must say that I think at the end when we light this up, it should actually look pretty cool. Anyway, let me know. Don't forget to put designer epoxy in the comments down below to be entered into the next giveaway for 3 gallons of epoxy at 145,000 subscribers when we get there. It's been a little slow, and of course that's only for continental USA and Canada. I should mention that. It's been a little slow. Spring, I realize that people are busy doing stuff. But anyway, we're inching our way there ever so slowly. But hey, if you haven't subscribed, please do that because it's free. It doesn't cost you a thing. I think a lot of people forget the bell notification because I keep getting, there's some comments where, oh, I wasn't notified or I don't have my bell notification on. So please put that bell notification on. That way you know that when I upload. And of course, the Flash Bond CA from Designer Epoxy, so far so good. I think it's a great product. And of course, if you want to get some of that, use code InlayGymCA. And of course, by doing that, you'll help out the channel, and I greatly appreciate it. Next week is going to be another bowl. I want to do a 3 or 4 bowl set next week. It's a bit ambitious for next week, but anyway, so we're going to be doing some more coring, and this is going to be a space themed project. Even though when I first started it, I didn't think that it was going to be. And anyway, it's still in the pressure pot. I'm going to check on it right now and see if it's ready to go. But anyway, that is going to be next week. Thanks a lot for watching. I really do appreciate it. And like I said, hit that subscribe button. And of course, that thumbs up will always help with the analytics. It'll help convince YouTube to push my content to others, and I would greatly appreciate it. All right, that's it. I'm out of here. Have yourselves a fantastic weekend, and hopefully we'll see you back here next week. Take care.